Whoa, is
You're
this
not
a
supposed to
cold
watch.
open?
You're supposed to watch.
I'm not gonna lie. I was thinking about how the mics were on when we went to the bathroom. Like I was
That's
like,
why I left mine.
I literally walked back in. I was like, that motherfucker cut this on and just was gonna leave all the extra audio from the back of the room or something. And then I was like hawking you down the last 2 minutes. He's been trying to start this episode for like
He's
4
just
minutes.
sitting off camera,
Yeah,
nowhere near the
quietly.
microphone.
Yeah.
Like,
I was
"Not
just sitting
getting
here
me
like
not getting me this time.
staring at him. Yeah, not this. He'll get me the rest every single episode going forward.
Welcome to House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 3.
I'm going to do a quick aside.
Mhm.
Last night, when I watched this show, I watch it with my friends online,
Mhm.
and I forgot to be truthful to my friend. Halfway through talking at the end of the episode, I was like, "Damn, I can't believe we have to wait 9 more weeks." Like, just as like I was just gonna like get him, and he was like, "What? What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, there's only 6 episodes this season, and they're doing it in 3 episode chunks." And the next set starts in 9 weeks. And I'm just remembering that I never went back and told him the truth. So, like, I think he thinks.
How long did you let him stir for?
Still is what I'm saying. I never went back and told him.
You serious?
I don't think. So, like, he probably still thinks it's like 2 months
He's in his
away.
like backyard, like
He's like, God damn it, I need to know what happens next. Yeah, he's I don't know what triggered that thought, but like I just was like, oh man. You said episode 3, that's why. 3, and I was like, why did I pick 3 as my lie? That's
Well, they
such
did
a
that-
dumb amount of episodes for them to stop halfway at.
It's believable though.
It is, though.
because they did that with Invincible.
They did do that with Invincible.
And I had a really cool joke to start off with, but I just totally butchered it. So I'm not even
No,
gonna go
do the
back to it.
joke.
No, I screwed it up.
Yeah, but now with the context of knowing you screwed it up, let's hear it. So
Well, it was
people can
gonna- I was
go
gonna
back and
say-
hear how dumb it was. This is what YouTube's for, Paul. This is going to be hilarious.
I
Or terrible, even worse, and you can cut it out.
See, I just haven't worked it out all the way, I guess, in my head.
Let me see it. I can't read that.
Well,
You
no,
just
yeah,
say it.
I was gonna try to reference the incredible amounts of nudity on this episode.
Okay, by saying what?
Where
Say it,
brought
just
to
do
you
it.
brought to you by your imagination, but then I missed the beat where I'm gonna end it with, because you don't need one because they show you everything, but I need the middle part. I don't have the middle part.
I understand.
So
Next time there's an on-screen we'll have this ironed out.
whoa, spoiler
Spoiler alert.
If you
I
haven't-
don't think it's a spoiler. It's on every social media feed
Yeah.
for this show.
Well, if
Everyone's
you-
like, whoa, this episode was nuts.
if you've missed
And showed some.
this episode, this thing at all yet, this is all spoilers. We're gonna tell you literally everything that happens in the show. We're gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to know what happens, you don't want to know about what he just said, then you're in the wrong
And
place.
if knowing a blowjob happens is a spoiler in the Game of Thrones spinoff, you might be like in the wrong realm of YouTube videos.
Yeah, it's more of a question of when
And
or
who.
how, not and like
Yeah.
if.
And why.
But this was a little bit more in your eye than
Yeah, this is probably the most graphic sexual moment in all of.
series
Game
of
of Thrones.
moments. I think.
Yeah,
It wasn't.
the only episode that even comes close is probably like the season 1 episode where Peter Baelish of Game of Thrones, where Peter Baelish is like coaching
Oh yeah,
Roz and the other girl through like having lesbian sex.
Yeah,
That scene
a
was
tough
pretty.
one.
That was a pretty like in your face. They're doing.
That's
it,
why
yeah.
this is not a show where like 2 generations of people in the same family are watching it.
Never.
No parents are watching this show with their children.
Yeah.
They're watching them separately in
And if
different
they
rooms.
are either the most
Cersei.
they're either the Cersei relationships of the world, or they're the most like healthy relationships that can even be possible existing if you can handle that together. And not
Yeah,
be
we'd
weirded
have
out.
like positive conversations about it, but
Yeah.
no, we're not even going to look each other in the eye during those scenes.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if
blind
you've seen it,
myself.
but in Sex Education, the show on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, you'll love it. It's a great show. But
I know what it is though.
yeah, Gillian Anderson, and whatever the
Asa Butterfield.
Butterfield. Yeah, those two. That's the kind of show they could watch and like have a positive conversation about. She's a sex therapist, and he learns from her and takes it into school and becomes a sex therapist who's a virgin, and it is the greatest show ever made. It is so good. It's one of my favorite shows. Anyway, sorry.
No, I like it.
Asides
I love it.
all over the place.
It reminded me though of I'm watching The House That Dragon Built, which is the like episode by episode sort of
Yeah.
behind the scenes that goes with it. Come to find out, and this is a good episode to talk about this too. The lady who's like Aemon's favorite
Like,
prostitute.
Yeah, the mother.
That's Sir Kristen Cole's acting coach from when he's younger.
What?
And
Like
so he
the
said-
real life acting coach?
in real life. Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
And so he said when he's doing the scenes with her from this episode, it was just really weird. Or maybe not from this episode. This would have been from season 1.
There's an episode where he's with her in season
when they're looking for Aegon.
his bastard.
When Kristen and Eamon are looking for drunk Aegon,
Ah,
they run into her, I believe, in a scene.
yeah.
And
he
so
was like,
that's when they
"This is
talk
weird."
about that from behind. He said it was so hard to act in front of her because
Because like I felt like I was getting judged.
yeah. Which I thought that's just a great thing.
That is pretty cool. Oberyn, Pedro Pascal
Hmm.
played Oberyn in the original show, and he only got that job because he's an acting teacher, and a student came to him with the script, and he was like, "Well, let me read the script," and he was like, "Yeah, you could probably do this," and then he went and got the job because he was like, "Dude, this is me, like
He's one of
a
my favorite
sexual
characters.
deviant 40-year-old." like,
He's one of my favorite
he's
characters in
killing
all
it.
of Game
I love
of
him.
Thrones.
House of the Dragon.
But no, this
Season
is what we're here
2.
for, baby.
I know. Season 2, episode 3.
But I wrote down here too because I was watching it. Sometimes
Yeah.
I just get all up in my feels about it.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, watching the House of Dragon build, it reminds me so much of Lord of the Rings and the depth and the care and what they put into the work that like just for a shot and you see this
that you're gonna see for 1 second,
second.
maybe, like not even a whole second of frames.
the hand embroidered costumes for the background extra. It's just another level of care.
The Brackens and the
Blackwoods.
Blackwoods. I wanted to say Blackhands. I was like, that's not the right name. The Brackens and Blackwoods, their costume design, they're on screen
for maybe 2 minutes.
45, 45 seconds each individually, and then there's like back shots
And that huge back shot too.
and that huge back shot. It all looked so great.
It's wonderful. There's so many shows, whether you want to say they suck or they don't suck, there's a lot of polarizing shows on television right now.
Yeah.
The Acolyte, The Boys. So it's nice to get a show where I don't have to it's just so immersive.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about is this show cared for or not. You can feel the care in the show, and it's just so nice to be able to just enjoy something for once.
As much as you want to like something like The Acolyte or The Boys, and if you do or not, that's cool. I'm not saying don't or do like things, but there are things in those shows that you're like, this is not all encompassing top quality
Yes.
media.
Yes.
House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones are both times always like about as good as you can get on every aspect of what's happening in front of you. Cinematography, set design, wardrobe, acting, writing, direction, everything is flawless. There's a reason that the first show is the most Emmy award winning show of all time.
And this is going to top it.
This is going to become
You know how I know?
How?
They brought the Snowboy back.
Did they actually?
They
Did
bring
you
the
look
snow
that
down.
in?
It was in House the Dragon built. Which it's
I
awesome.
love you. I'm so glad you looked
It's
that
like
up.
it's like 3 hours of this stuff that you get to see them do behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's amazing, man.
Yeah.
The stage that they're using, there's this it's basically a giant room filled with cameras, and that's where they're filming a lot of their scenes. So they're not doing technical
Like on
green
sets,
screens.
yeah.
They're doing these giant
That's
film, and I believe what happens is, depending on where the camera's facing,
It-
it will change the aspect of the background.
of the background. That's the Mandalorian. That
Yes.
started in the Mandalorian, and now everybody's using it because it looks so good.
And they all have
in
to
the
do is just a little
Mandalorian.
bit of set dressing to make it work.
In the second episode of the Mandalorian, it's the first scene they show you the demo of where he's in the canyon and the Tuscans' dogs come out. Like that scene, that whole thing is on a 15 by 15 soundstage.
Yeah.
And
It's crazy.
it's all screens behind him that are moving. It's like the Lord of the Rings trick to show Gandalf and Frodo
On the
at the
same
table
table.
where they're literally moving the pieces in the camera, but it's all digital now instead of having to have the physical weirdness, which that scene setup is one of the coolest looking things in the world from behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. You're like,
And-
how does this work?
Yeah, and then to see it revolutionized, any set can be that with any character of any size to make anything look good. Imagine if they had that for the 1-1 scenes or the ghost scenes or any of the dogs from Game of Thrones. Like, as good as it already looked, if they had waited 10 years to make that show, we would have the greatest looking like set animals and set giants and,
And
all
those
these
are-
characters.
those are all great
and
things.
and they all still look great then. That's God, I gotta stop sucking Game of Thrones dick.
But this is
hard.
like it's. I'm telling you, it's reinvigorated because I used to get so excited about Game of Thrones, watching videos and
And even
theories.
more excited about the potential for House of the Dragons going forward.
And now it's like it's just the fire is lit again.
Yes.
and I'm back to it. Back in the saddle again.
This episode begins.
That's okay, man. That's what I'm
I know,
here for,
I know, I
baby.
just-
Okay, episode 3. Quit ruining things.
I know you're Fuck, shit. I'm sorry.
Episode 3, The Burning Mill.
The Burning
Directed
Mill.
by Agrita Vasant Patel. I've never heard of her
It's
before.
my aunt, actually.
Okay, well, here you go. Questions from last week. Some of them did get answers, some of them didn't. Where will Otto go? Old Town or High Garden? It's kind of ambiguous at this point.
Yeah, I think it's more likely he's not in Old Town because you'd think that him and his son would have crossed paths going to and from.
Yes. Which I have questions about him. And then
Yeah.
there's what will Damon's recourse be towards Rhaenyra? And it seems as though he's still kind of on her side at this point, which is really interesting to see. And we could almost, well, I won't talk about that last. Last week ended. Otto Hightower removed his hand to the king in a pretty epic scene. Otto decides to leave, and we talk about but to where. It's either going to be to Old Town or to High Garden, at least they presume, but we don't really know. And then we see the twin Kingsguard, Sir Eric and Sir Eric, fight to the death and then commit suicide.
Yes.
And they actually showed that in the House of Dragonbelt, that they filmed it on purpose, both brothers getting the same wounds in the same places so that you can't tell who is who, and they said they won't tell you.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Mhm.
That's super sick. So you don't even know if really, technically, the one at the end is the one who's on her side because he might just be so grief-ridden that he just does it. He kills himself anyway.
Yep, I know that
he
I
knows
have
he's
the
not going to
names
survive
right.
any fight left.
Yeah,
There's other Kingsguard in there too,
The
and he's
idea
already
is that
wounded.
they're like so close to one another that it was to push him over the edge. But I did have their names right at least going into the scene.
Good
I was
job,
proud about that.
God, you sound like the friend in the group who's like, it's actually they are. You're that guy, which that's me. But
Don't you mean you are?
yeah.
Douche. Otto decides to live. Okay, I have to say the lines again where Allison says, "Father, I've sinned," and he says, "I do not wish to hear it."
Oh God.
He's so beastly. And then we ended on a little brown chicken, brown cow action from Christian Cole and Allison.
Yep. Which is spoiler alert, probably the last time for a while.
You think so?
It seems like it's gonna be. They might not see each other for the rest of the season.
You never know. They may never see each other again.
Yeah, there's
well,
really good
I don't read these books, so I won't know.
Yeah, I haven't either. So I mean, I only know the only thing going forward that I sort of have an idea about is the fate or potential end of what happens to Daemon, and it's very ambiguous what I've heard. What does or does not happen. So like that's not even a spoiler saying potential fate, potential end. I just know kind of the direction his story's going. I don't know what it means.
Which may make it worse.
Exactly. Because now I'm kind of trying to figure
how
out
they're going to fit this in here.
Exactly.
And that can be excruciating in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
or
it could
House of
happen in the
Dragon.
next episode. It could happen in 2 seasons. You know,
Especially
like,
when they're so quick in this episode. Like, I don't want to skip to things.
Okay.
All right. I'm not going to skip to it because I got my notes this time.
yes.
Baby. All right. Cut to
Cut to
the Riverlands.
yes.
And a young group of, let me make sure.
Delinquents.
Bracken soldiers wearing yellow, adorned with a horse sigil. And they're out mucking a boot until they're approached by some young Blackwood soldiers adorned in red. And these are both families that are of the Riverlands.
Who have been like Hatfield McCoying it for centuries, apparently.
Yes. And one of them has declared for Rhaenyra and the other has declared for...
Well, the main Blackwood is the guy from season 1 specifically, who like in person offered his hand in marriage to her. Like he was very much like, "Yo, Rhaenyra,
pick me, pick me, pick me,
what's
pick
up?"
me. What's
yeah,
up?
yeah. And she was like, "No," and he was still like, "Cool, but I with you. You know that, right?"
Is it, which one was it, though?
Blackwood.
Was he the old guy?
No, he's the young dude. The young dude in the episode. Who,
Oh, with the very, very young one or the guy that he kills?
the guy that the one who kills him. The Blackwood, the one on the left, the red and blacks, the ones who comes in on the horse and says, "Move
Well,
the
no, I'm
stones,
saying
fix the
in-
border so
in
your
the
cows can't have
episode-
our."
That you see him before. Which person is he?
Oh, he's not the Lannister dude because he also offers it up at the hunt.
Okay.
And it's
I'm
not
trying
the
to
older
picture-
dude.
I didn't know if you know.
He was young. It was a while before because you're talking. That was still when Rhaenyra was a young woman.
Yeah, because there's a scene where the two guys kill each other. The young man, where the one guy gets killed.
In season
Talking
1.
smack, in
Yeah.
season 1. I don't know if it was either of those guys.
Well, if it was the one who survives.
Okay, fair enough.
The first 5 episodes of season 1, I'm the most murky on because I watched them. I might have watched one of those episodes twice, but I'm pretty sure I've only seen those first 5 episodes one time. And then the last 5 episodes, I probably watched 2 or 3 times each, just
Okay.
because.
Fair enough.
Personally, I really f- with Emma Darcy, who plays Rhaenyra, a little bit more than I did. A lot of people liked younger Rhaenyra more.
Well, I was very mad when they switched them originally, but Emma
Yep.
Darcy's just on
She's
another
killing
planet.
it so well.
To watch her act off camera, like you're standing on the sidelines
Yeah.
with, again, the House of Dragon build. I'm just like, bro, she's been standing there and they haven't even rolled camera. She's nailing it from here. I
Yeah.
can see her.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
She's so good.
And that's just she's just an older actress, more experienced, but the young girl nailed it too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're both killing it.
But they cast the older roles first, so you had to get a good match for them.
Yeah. And seeing her in interviews, she's one of those people where I'm more and more like, they have to go so far in the hole looking for these actors and actresses for this show to make sure that they're not like douchebags in real life or into the weird Hollywood shit. Because every interview I see for any of these actors and actresses, they are the coolest motherfuckers that have ever lived.
Well, that's what you
in
keep
real
hearing
life.
is that they're like, this is the best crew I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
It's not even close.
But and again, that's why I talked about at the beginning. Is it's all from top to bottom. There's so much care and love that
Yes.
these people are out there riding, dying.
I feel like the casting director for both shows, because it's probably the same person. I don't know, but I would assume it's
not.
It's not the same person?
Well, Miguel Sapochnik, who was a director
of most of the
big
battle scenes. Yeah.
He and this other guy, and I know I should have wrote his name down, and I almost did, but I didn't. He's a gentleman who's the showrunner along with him that does a lot of the writing, and I think they both oversee it as showrunners.
Yeah.
And then they have different people come in to direct the episodes, but it's a very much like not a singular person.
Okay, it's lots of casting people.
It's you could tell they have a lot of people return, like concept artists and people that worked on Game of Thrones. But as far as like DB Weiss and or whatever their names were, they're not.
Yeah,
Benioff and
DB Weiss,
and they're
David
not.
Benioff.
They're not.
Which makes me sad. I think the biggest stab to cinema in the last 50 years and for the next 50 years is the canceling of those two as creators, because people were like, you guys ruined this show because of season 8. But in reality, they didn't ruin the show because of season 8. George R.R. Martin ruined the show.
It was
by
poor
not having more
circumstances.
stuff for them to adapt. Those are not creators. They are adapters.
No, and that's
And
what
they
I'm-
do create.
Well, they also
their new
said,
show, Three Body Problem, is apparently killing it and
but
amazing. I haven't watched
you
it.
run into a bunch of problems. Like I said, it was a circumstantial thing. I also heard that the production company was slated to work on like a Star Wars something or other.
Yeah, they were supposed to. They were locked in for the next 6 Star Wars, like episode 10 through 16.
Yeah, and the crew was really excited, and they've been doing
Yeah.
it for a while. And it's the kind of thing where it just
Season 8
sucky
floundered.
circumstances.
Yeah,
it is what
season
it is.
8 floundered, and everyone was like, "We don't want them on Star Wars." It's like they were about to make the best Star Wars we were going to have yet, because they adapted the best stuff out of Game of Thrones. I feel like they landed in order.
I numbered them.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, me too.
It had to be
Uh,
dramatic.
But that, we were robbed of, and this is not Game of Thrones talk anymore, but we were robbed of the best Star Wars probably we were going to get
Clearly.
for a while. Yeah, especially because that was all slated before episode 8 even
Mhm.
came out.
Ryan Johnson.
But those guys they were probably going to do the same thing that the guys are now, which is
Mhm.
adapt a lot of Legends material,
Mhm.
but they were going to do it in the movies instead of these shows. And I love the shows. Even the bad ones I like, because I think right now is peak Star Wars. Excuse me? I do. That's what I think. For me personally, we're in peak Star Wars at this moment.
We'll be casting for a new co-host for that starting next week.
How dare you? Mostly because of Andor, Ahsoka, these things that if you watch if you watch the encompassing,
I liked Andor, the parts that I saw.
if you watch the encompassing focus of what Star Wars is, if you've seen every single thing, it's in its peak right now. You didn't watch Rebels, you didn't watch Clone Wars, so you don't know how it all connects and why it all connects and what makes good things good.
I don't want to get into a bunch of Star Wars.
Yeah, we're
stuff,
not,
so
and that's all I have to say.
No, but I hear you.
But that
I
is
hear you.
to say that them not being a part of this isn't as terrible, but it still would have been good for them to be in it, I think, because the reason the reason Game of Thrones was great
Mhm.
is because those two guys knew
No, I
how to
agree.
adapt the first giant portion of the show, because they had nothing but book to adapt from.
Mhm.
And then when you watch seasons 5, 6, 7, and 8 of Game of Thrones, there's stuff from book 1, stuff from book 2.
No, it's great. I'm
In
not
those
hating on it.
seasons that they went back and grabbed just because they were running out of shit to adapt.
Mhm.
They're like, well, we got to get something that we know is good and going to work. And so a lot of the best parts of the last 2 seasons are still from the books.
Mhm.
They're just stuff that they went deep into the fucking hole and
Yeah,
kept
I don't think
that they
that's
didn't
my
use.
issue with it. It was just seemed rushed. I think was my big issue.
Well, yeah, but they didn't have anything to adapt.
And I
so they have
get that,
to finish the
but I
best
think-
fictional work of the last 100 years, aside from maybe
They
Lord
would
of
have
the
done a
Rings.
great job, I'm sure. But I think in hindsight, seeing where it is now, I think if you compare where the show is, House of Dragon
Yeah.
season 2 beginning versus Game of Thrones season 2 beginning, I think House of the Dragon is doing a better job. And I just think it's a little different approach. They have a little bit more money in the beginning, but I think
yeah,
if you invited them back, I think you're going to invite maybe some ire from like fans and
Yeah,
and
that's
journalists
true.
that may have negatively impacted the show. And I think I wanted this thing to be least impacted, like a baby egg. You know?
Yeah.
So I get why maybe someone would have wanted them to come back, but I'm also glad that they found somebody new to try something different.
and
'Cause
that it's working so well.
It's blown me out of the
It's
water.
like, and it's not even that they're new; it's that they're experienced and not the original main guys.
yes.
It's like you got Miguel. Miguel's probably the biggest get they could get for any kind of showrunner. He made easily
The best
directed the
episodes.
best episodes of that show.
for sure.
The best episodes of every season. If you go back and look up what are the most popular episodes of each season,
Mhm.
9 out of 10, it's
It's him.
Miguel Sapochnik.
Yep. So they
He's
were
an
the biggest
absolute
scoped ones.
legend.
But just like regular Game of Thrones, it was more than just 2 guys running it. There were so many people involved. They're running 4 cameras.
This all stemmed from casting.
Yeah.
The casting is so great.
But they're running 4 cameras on set at House of the Dragon. 4 live cameras at one time. 2 A units. There's no A and B unit.
They're filming a stage play.
Basically.
Yeah.
And they're doing it in live cities. So there's got to be at least 2 directors on every episode.
Yeah.
Whether that's one director and then maybe a show. I don't know. But we
I
were
bet-
talking about something.
Yeah, I bet for the showrunners that work on location, it's a lot weirder not being in somewhere like Croatia for 8 months at a time.
Mhm.
You know, now that they're doing
Yeah.
a lot of these soundstage situations.
Well, they're also doing a lot of them where they're building on the back lot and building on green screens
Exactly.
and building extensions of live sets. So they're doing a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But we were talking about number 1.
Yeah. We're on the first scene
All right.
where the
There's
Blackwoods.
The battle, which later will be referred to as a
Okay, let's lock in. Let's
Lo-
lock in on
lock
the
in.
episode. We're back. We're here. We didn't go anywhere. No
All
more
right.
Star Wars. No more cinema as a whole.
we cut to a young group of Bracken soldiers in yellow being approached by a group of Blackwood soldiers,
Yes.
and they argue about some farmland.
We've reached the 45-second point of the episode.
Yes,
Yes.
pretty much.
Give or take.
And
We're here.
and they're upset because of what's called an assize, which is an agreement handed down by the ruling class about land and things of that nature.
Some Brackens have taken upon themselves, apparently, what's the word when you did or did not do it? Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Allegedly, they've moved some rocks, which is the border of the land,
Yes.
so that their cows could graze on some
Yes.
grass. And this
Pretty much. There's some name
This-
calling.
this little tiff happens.
There's some name calling, but then it cuts.
Yeah.
And it cuts away. We don't know what happens yet. We'll come back to them because we do find out what happens.
It doesn't cut away at all.
It does cut away.
It cuts immediately to it. It's in the same scene.
No, it doesn't.
Are you sure?
Uh huh. I wrote it down, and I promise you. I promise you. I
Okay.
promise you.
Okay.
Wait, no, you're right. You're right. I wrote it in
Because it
after.
cuts from his
Okay, I got
face
an
to
arrow.
his face.
I got an arrow. Yes, he's right. That's why he's here. Because I'm a moron. I'm a fucking moron. Okay. Cuts to a beautiful shot of the same long-haired Bracken Knight dead,
Yeah.
and it's just a slow zoom out of where they were just before.
And a whole battle has
And
now
it's-
ensued.
Everybody's
And
dead.
everyone's dead.
Everybody's
But it's probably also from later. Like it kind of insinuates that they probably left in that moment apart from each other,
And a
went
battle
got
came
forces,
back.
and a battle happened.
Yes. So it's not
They
clear.
do
like,
that a lot in Game of Thrones. The live face to the dead face.
Yes.
This is probably like the 8th time it's happened in the 2 franchises.
They haven't stole it too much this run
Yeah.
around, but they did this time. Yeah, I thought that they cut away to the next one first, but they don't. You're right.
I'm sorry. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
It
You
won't
gotta
matter.
look. You check me when I'm wrong. I check you.
It won't matter. I'll delete it, and no one will know. But yeah, it's this really badass slow zoom revealing the battlefield.
My friends and I got into a big debate over how much of that shot was CG.
Yeah,
And
I
I
would say
was-
about 20% was real.
I was going to say way less. I was like, that might have been a real prosthetic head with a sword. And then I think every single shot, every single thing outside of the immediate 4 or 5
Mhm.
foot vicinity of his body was probably CG.
Well, they showed what they did for like the dragon pit scene when he gets crowned
yeah,
in the House of Dragon build, and it's basically like 100 people in there, and then everything else is CG.
yeah,
So it's a pretty small portion, but like all the soldiers with their swords up,
yeah.
every soldier was real in
Oh,
line.
that's pretty cool.
So they had like most of the middle, but everything else is filled
Yeah.
in. So I could see them doing both, a little bit bigger scale, but a little bit smaller scale. But so we see that there's a battle, and what later that's going to be referred to as the Battle of Burning Wood, and it will serve an importance later. Burning
Burning
Mill. Wood. Sorry.
Blackwoods.
Yeah.
Anyway, Burning Mill sounds
It'll
like
be referred to as the Battle of Burning Mill.
Burning Wood sounds like an STD in the Game of Thrones universe.
We're going to go to Burning Mill later. It's like the rock
Yeah.
festival of Game of Thrones.
This is where all the lootists come.
We get our loot on. We finally
Awesome.
cut to a funeral for Sir Eric and Sir Eric. Jaehaerys
remarks that Sir Eric of the Red Keep
Mhm.
should not be buried as
It
honorably.
sullies with his brother's.
But
memory.
Rhaenyra says they were
He
both
sees-
doing their duty.
She says she sees the merit. I can't fault him for keeping his oath, is what she
Mhm.
says exactly.
Which is they're really peppering on after all this horrible shit that's happened to Rhaenyra that she is still far and away the most honorable candidate.
Well, that's what she reels in this episode, and this is really what this episode really the core of it's about is the two queens, Alicent and Rhaenyra, and both of their willingness to really want to not have a war.
Yes.
They both, and there'll be a few scenes at Hammer at Home about how it's Rhaenys does this. She
excuse
speaks
me.
very soon about how this war is only going to be worse than every other war because it's between kin, and those are always the most bloody. And eventually what happens is you can't remember what starts the war. It starts for something. And she asks her later, well, what starts the war? And she says a specific thing. It was, this is what started it. She's
Yeah.
like, well, or was it when Jaehaerys or Aemon lost his eye? Is that when the war started?
Yeah.
Or is it a time before that? Or is it a time before that? And they
sin begets sin,
sin
begets
begets
sin.
And I love it.
They really do iron in every few scenes the idea of these problems can just evolve over time. What happened with the
And it's-
Brackens
that's
and the
what Game of
Blackwoods?
Thrones is.
Yeah, what happened with the it's I don't know if I'm just seeing it because it happened to happen in the last 3 or 4 years to all of my favorite franchises, but that is a very strong in this moment theme, in
Mhm.
this moment in time and in the world, not just in these shows I like. I think that a lot of people, to get a little tiny teensy bit political, in the world, people are trying to iron home. How about we try forgiving a lot more than we try blaming?
Mhm.
Because that might be the only way out of this nonsense that everything and everybody's in. And I'm not going to pick a side or make a stance on anything to say that.
No. I
But
get what
like
you're
in
saying.
the grand scheme of things,
Yes.
whether it's video games, The Last of Us, God of War, House of the Dragon, so many movies, so many shows over the last 4 or 5 years have been trying to really iron in the look. People make mistakes, horrible things happen. Figure out if you can forgive those things
Mhm.
rather than blame them.
Mhm.
And if you can forgive them, things can get back to a semblance of normal.
I agree.
And
A little
I
bit
think
of kindness goes a long way.
exactly.
A little bit of kindness, a little bit of forgiveness.
Yeah,
And I forgive you for once again averting this wonderful show here.
I'm sorry. It is an inlay to the show, though. Usually
No,
I get
I'm
off
kidding.
topic and I'm all the way
No,
off
but
topic.
that's really a central idea for this story.
Yeah,
and
this episode
keep
could be
hopping it around.
called "Please Forgive Everybody."
Mhm.
Like it really does
But
bring it up a
because
lot of
it's-
times.
It's so Game of Thrones, you kind of know that
It's
probably
definitely not going to go down that way.
Blah blah bleebler bleebler. They have a little talky talk. Rhaenys sees retaliation as
From
too
her
brash
counsel.
from
Oh,
Otto
okay.
Hightower. She's speaking to Rhaenys
Yeah.
at this point. Rhaenys says, "I see this whole situation as beyond Otto Hightower because it's stupid
Yeah.
and it's brash."
Basically calls it out exactly as it is.
Yes,
This
she's
is
so
young
smart.
men's work. Yeah,
She's
she
so
is.
smart.
She's really working her way to be my favorite character that I'm going to hate at the end.
Yeah,
I
they
can just
kinda
tell.
played at her that she's basically been coaching Rhaenyra how to be queen since she's been a little girl.
Yeah,
How to handle things, how to do them valiantly as an honorable woman.
but the scariest part about it is that, at least in my eyes, she seems like in this show she will actually end up being the real villain.
You think so?
It's shot in the dark, but the direction they're taking her, the the patience she's having with Rhaenyra, but the worry she has when speaking about Rhaenyra to everyone else, is just slowly steering her character into like a game of chicken with Rhaenyra at the end of this story once she's gotten rid of her enemies who are also clearly like
I
out
could
of
see that.
focus and not understanding what's going on the way Rhaenyra does.
Just kind of waiting for her to be at her most vulnerable.
Exactly. I think they're trying to pull a Daenerys on Rhaenys.
Mm-hmm.
Rhaenyra will always be the level-headed one because of Rhaenys, but Rhaenys in the end will let it go to her head
I could see that.
and really like getting mad at certain decisions and certain things that happen. Especially if unless she finds out that her son is still alive. That might be the only thing that could. There will probably be, if they don't have this happen where Rhaenys becomes a villain, there will come a time where she seems like she's definitely going to be a villain, finds out her son's really alive, and that Rhaenyra was in charge of what happened, but that she kept him alive on purpose. That will be the only way that she comes out of the fire that she might be about to go into.
I still feel she reminds me a little bit of like Varys, kind of, in that I don't know, I can't tell if they're playing them to be a good guy or a bad guy.
Exactly.
I can't
It's
tell.
very difficult.
It's so hard.
I do
to tell
like
right
how
now.
Mysaria. I'll wait till we get to Mysaria.
Yeah, because she's actually
Coming
I thought
up
she was
any
going to be
second
done.
now.
All right. Renee sees it for what his words. Here's a blah, 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 blah. This is when she offers sort of a solution that Alicent Hightower, who she recently received a letter from, she thinks she'll listen. She thinks she believes the same thing. You just need to
Those are
speak
other
to
men.
her.
Those are not Alicent's words on that paper.
Yeah.
Something along the lines is how I'm paraphrasing, but that's kind of what they say.
Yeah,
That's what Rhaenys says.
She hammers home again that a war between kin, and especially a war between kin with dragons, is especially bloody, and it is no even the winner in that war is a loser.
Everyone loses. Yeah.
And I just think that's one of the big themes about this. And she also hammers home how they're both in the same predicament, and that someone's tried to attempt or actually gone to murder in their name against their wishes.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, I think, the moment where you see her kind of like, you know what?
Yeah.
Okay,
Fair point. There's
Fair point.
really nobody at this point. Nobody knows how this started, why it started, and the only thing going forward is going to be pain if we continue in the way that it keeps going.
But you can tell but she's still not ready to break bread with her at this point.
Yeah.
We cut then to Sir Criston Cole, deep in thought. Now the hand of the king. You can tell already that he's uneased about something. Yes. I think it's two things. One thing, it's the heaviness of the position. The other, we come to find out here when he gets to where he's going. He goes and ascends to the small council. While he's going to small council, he runs upon two new Kingsguard who are lounging about on their bum-bums.
They're our boy King Aegon's best friends.
And I didn't realize that right away.
Until the end.
Until they're with him hanging out
and he
in
says,
the Taylor.
You have to be you swore chastity.
Yes.
And his buddy's like, you okay? And then he looks at him. He's like, I gotta stay a virgin. I don't get
the next scene,
they're immediately at a whorehouse. Yeah.
Come on, bro.
The king doesn't care about himself being in those environments, but his Kingsguard probably can.
I just think he just likes to
with his buddies.
Yeah. When he's mad.
I will say Fabian Frankel, as much as I praised him in the last episode, absolutely steals every scene he's in as Criston Cole.
Oh, yeah.
Steals every scene he's in this episode. I thought that he was going to like flounder as the hand off the bat and maybe kind of fix it up going, but he falls into the hand of the king position so well.
I think he's up for the task, but I think he's still a little uneasy about the position because it's a high position. That's a big boy job.
He lets people. He weaves. He pulls an auto right off the bat of weaving in and out of certain characters' motivations and what they want, explaining why what they want isn't going to work, and making sacrifices himself to make the council see what needs to happen. All in one conversation. I mean, he goes from like douchebag the queen. Knight of the
what are they talking about?
What they need to do next? How the war will go forward? Going to get Harrenhal.
He goes to
keeping the king from going and fighting with Aemon.
He goes to the small council.
Yes,
and that's when he says something to the king about his boys. But like, bro, when did you go get these new Kingsguard?
Didn't even talk to me.
No,
I'm your hand, and I'm the leader of the.
And then Sir Ironrod says maybe because the last one was like. Went away so quickly, kind of back jabbing him about what he did.
About Sir Eric.
He basically gives him the what for a second. And that's when we move to the next situation, which is what you're explaining. So I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're good. they're discussing how they need to go to war, who they need to go get, whose arms they need to go get. They discuss going to Harrenhal.
Mhm.
Aemon says he'll take Vagar. Kristen Cole shuts that down real fast,
Mhm.
but then immediately says, "I'll do it," which is
so dumb.
such it's dumb, but it's gangster as fuck considering it really is the only option left.
Mhm.
Because you can't take Vagar. Vagar has to stay at the Red Keep.
Yep.
He's right about that. Vagar has to protect the king, has to protect the royal family.
He's also the biggest and the oldest and the slowest.
Yeah, the biggest, most gangster dragon, scariest one for sure, probably alive right now.
Yeah.
Other than Vermithor, who was the previous king before Viserys' dragon that Daemon goes and sees in season one.
But we don't see anything.
You don't
from
really
it.
know what's going on there, where he's at, what he's doing.
Yeah, they don't really see what comes of that.
Exactly, not yet.
No.
But he's apparently the next biggest after Vagar.
And we do hear a ton this episode how Rhaenyra doesn't have a lot at her disposal at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he's over there somewhere.
Yeah, the idea is that these dragons are strategically placed where the positions of power that Rhaenyra still has are.
Mhm.
Like one's probably in Winterfell somewhere or near Winterfell because they've already pledged their swords to her.
Which we find out a little bit.
And so has the Vale.
We find out a little bit later some more decisions that she makes.
Yeah, but he also explains that the king cannot go even in his rage and wanting to go decides that the king has to stay, Aemon has to stay with Vagar, and that is why Kristen Cole is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find, I think it comes a little later. Yeah, it does. So I'll save that.
And this is when Aemon gives them the news of the Brackens and the Blackwaters,
Yes.
and that's when they decide that they need to get a foothold.
Because
in
clearly,
the
whether
Riverlands.
they're making decisions or not, the war is starting,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to declare whether or not it truly is starting and figure out who's on whose side.
Yes, but they kind of come to
And
the
stop letting
conclusion
their
that,
armies kill each other.
that Lord Tully needs to handle his stuff.
Exactly.
But they're not sure he's capable at this point because of him
Apparently
being like an
he's
old dude.
bedridden,
And yeah, they talk to
like Viserys was.
Yeah. So they talk about the fixes and the potential, what they want to do. Talk about Lord Lannister's twin is in Casterly Rock and currently building an army for them.
Yeah.
He's not quite ready yet, but he's close. They talk about Darren and his dragon are a solution in Old Town, but they mention that that's about a month away before anything could happen. And that's when Cole, after some resistance from Alicent, who seems to that they're kind of like split a little bit.
They're definitely, there's like a tension growing between the two of them.
Yes. I think they may still slip into the nighttime a little bit with one another, but I don't know that it'll be a very happy thing.
Yeah, they're definitely not on the same page about everything where they were before. He is now the person in position of power,
and she realizes
is now
that
the submissive.
She realizes
she
that.
has to submit to what his decisions are, all because of her son.
At least up front in public.
Which
she doesn't like that.
Yeah, until later, which I'll get to that later.
And everybody's kind of given Kristen Cole at this point some pushback because of him failing in his first attempt. So he just kind of says, you know what, this is what we're going to do. And he doesn't balk the way. He said, I'm going to take a small group. We're going to go in fast. We're going to hit him in the mouth. And we're going to take Harrenhal. And we're going to take the Riverlands. And then we talk about how he says he wants to go along with the dragons. And they kind of nix that, but he seems like he's intent on going. Yeah. Which is the king wants to go to war. He's still very hot-headed and doesn't want to be seen as somewhat of a weak man. But so they decide that that's where they're going to go. Cole's going to go, and he's going to go try to figure things out here in the Riverland so they can get a foothold there themselves, which means that there's a potential for them to run into Daemon while they're there.
Yes.
In the future.
Which is a really cool potential clash that could happen because the only person who's defeated Daemon in single combat is Kristen Cole.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be a very fun reunion fight if there's a fight to even happen there.
Mm-hmm.
But I doubt that Daemon, as prideful as he is, would not just use his dragon to guarantee a victory.
But I also wouldn't...
Especially after his judgment on Rhaenys for not doing so.
But I also see him as like the Jaime thing where I feel like the guy spearing Ned in the leg where he's like pissed off now that it's not a clean death, that he want to get down and beat him hand to hand to prove it.
Potentially, yeah.
I could see them going both ways. He's also
especially
smart enough
considering that
just
fight
to kill him.
Was just a tournament.
Yeah.
It was never meant to be a true fight.
Yeah. I could also see him fighting him hand to hand, losing, and then getting on his dragon and just having his dragon kill him.
Yeah.
Just like...
Yeah. Like, dog, can you eat this guy already?
Please.
Like,
Or maybe they have
I-
such
I
a
need
bond.
some help.
Maybe they have such a
that
bond
he just knows and does
that
it.
the dragon just gets into the middle of the fight
Yeah.
anyway. That would be
be
a dope way
That
to
would
go.
be pretty sick.
Um,
Very much a reflection on Aemon not having control of Vhagar. True control. The dragons are always in the main control.
Here's what he says in quote before we cut to the next scene, which is
Mysaria and
yeah,
Rhaenyra.
which is Christian Cole says, I will enlist the Brackens, subdue the Riverlands, and take Harrenhal. And that's kind of his plan.
That's a pretty strong statement too.
Yeah. I like some of the quotes. I had to write them down. So we cut to
Rhaenyra and Mysaria at Dragonstone,
Mhm.
seeing sea smoke,
a flying
around.
dragon,
Yeah.
which is we later find out is Leonor's dragon, who's
Yes.
kind of like sad and misses his
and
dad.
lonely, which I think is very much by the end of the scene, very in your face foreshadowing that someone will have this dragon soon.
Yes, potentially.
Potentially,
Or he's
whether
gonna
it's
come
Laenor
back.
himself, whether it's Laenor himself
Mhm.
or
I think
gets
Laenor coming
past
back
it.
is a very, very capable fighter too.
Yes.
So that'd be a big piece if he comes back.
It's just such a problem for him to come back though, because of her and Daemon and what they've done
Mhm.
and what they've
Oh yeah.
proclaimed.
Yeah.
How could he come back without being someone else?
They want to set this up because they have all these young dragons. They want to
Yeah.
set this up for like young warriors to grow into these dragons in time for this war to take
Exactly.
place. Masara and
Mysaria.
Mysaria. I always butcher her name. They want to.
I did too. I literally wrote it down and just stared at it for like 10 minutes last night because I was tired of thinking of her as the white
Mysaria?
worm. Yeah, Mysaria.
Mysaria.
'Cause
I'm
the white worm-
Mysaria for getting your name wrong.
How dare you? The in Game of Thrones, Varys is known as the Spider, which Varys is a little easier, I think, than Mysaria for me. But she's the White Worm. That's her name. Like that's her like sneaky name for being
Okay.
the Whisperer person.
Yes.
But in this show, I was getting tired of saying the White Worm every time and hoping everyone knew that, and not only me. So I'm getting used to Mysaria. Probably top two scenes of the episode for me is Rhaenyra talking to Mysaria, and her saying her what's the word of what she wants out of Rhaenyra instead of just freedom and passage. She
Mhm.
says, "I want to see it on your court," and her reasons for it are the reason that she is probably now my favorite character in the show.
I mean, I don't.
she
doesn't
truly
grab
is
me like that.
the reflection of Varys in that
Kinda,
she
sorta.
truly just wants what's best for the small folk.
Well, she also
for the
wants to.
realm.
She wants a little bit some revenge on the High Towers.
That too, which I think is her way of maybe. I really think the direction we'll see her character take is that she wants revenge for the High Towers because she thinks that's what Rhaenyra will want her to want to keep her on the court.
Mhm.
What she truly wants, I really think they're playing this off as this is the heart and soul of the behind the scenes character. She is the heart and soul of what is good of this show. She wants this to be as peaceful a war as possible.
I don't know that I see that. I see her
Really?
as kind of like a villainous character.
I don't know. I mean, every turn she has taken the road less painful for herself and for others. She sometimes, her actions have been the reason that Aegon's son dies, but one person died there. They end up
That's
killing
a
all the
pretty
rat
big one,
catchers.
though.
It is a big one. It's a big one, but again, it is before a war has started.
But she strikes me
It
as
was a potential war ender / immediate revenge for a thing that happened. I get that,
but also
every time she has a
immediate
hand in
revenge
something,
towards a High Tower too.
exactly.
That's what I feel like her motives are bubble wrapped in like some viciousness.
Yeah,
Like she's a
probably.
little bit of a ruthless person.
But in the way that Varys finally gets back at the man who castrated him, once that is over, he was all about fixing the realm. His whole mission going forward was
Well,
what
so
is the best thing
who's
for the
her-
grand scheme.
Who's her guy in a box?
Probably Otto.
Okay.
Probably Otto. Maybe someone else. Maybe Aemon. Maybe whoever. Maybe she just wants blood, and when she gets it, she'll be happy. Maybe she's already gotten it, and she doesn't care anymore because she got the little kid. I doubt it.
Mhm.
Probably Otto is her, or Alicent is her like number one, number two. But whether or not that's the real motive, I think that they're trying to show us this is the character going forward who you'll always agree with. This is the character who you'll always be on the side.
I don't know, man.
Yeah?
I think she's gonna be. I really feel like she could be like a turncoat. Like they set her
Yeah.
up to like be an altruistic
Yeah.
character, but like she's so broken that it kind of does the Daenerys thing a little bit.
See, it's for me. See, we're just seeing this so different. For me, it's the coin flip of like Arya. Once Arya got with Sansa, you think maybe they're going to butt heads because they did when they were kids,
Mhm.
but Arya basically devotes herself to anything Sansa says because she realizes she's the smartest one in the room. And this is like she was with Daemon and now she's with Rhaenyra. And Rhaenyra is
But
clearly the most capable of all these powerful people
she
that
still
Mysaria's
seems
run
like
into. She's the best and most powerful.
but she seems like she's still caught up on Damon to me. And I think that there's still something to be said for that.
Maybe, but I think that the
And that's the
direction Daemon is
difference.
now taking,
That's
and
the
the next
difference to
time
me.
she's going to see Daemon, she's going to realize not only am I on the right side, Rhaenyra is clearly out of Otto Hightower, Daemon, Rhaenyra, Alicent. Rhaenyra is the best person and the most powerful one, the most capable minded for the realm that any of these people are, and it's not even close.
Yeah.
And that's what she's seeing.
That's why
step by step, judgment for judgment, and Rhaenyra uses that. And
That's why I like
by
the
the end of
show
the
so
episode,
much.
the direction she takes and the next step for Rhaenyra is very much in line with that thinking.
Mhm.
And I think that going forward, they will be a very powerful partnership in
I
in
do
terms
believe
of
that.
the
I do
people
believe that.
and what is supposed to be.
I do believe
right.
she can make some move some mountains for sure.
Yes.
And I like that about. That's why I like. But that's why I love this show is because I still see Alicent as like the person that will make this happen in terms of like leading to a bloodless war. I think that the only way that that happens is if Rhaenyra gives things up. I think it's kind of thing where it's like a monster that's moving now. And at this point, who's right and who's wrong is not going to fix
Yeah, Team
this.
Green is Japan, and they just woke the sleeping giant.
I don't
like that
think
kind of scenario. Like,
I don't think that no matter what happens at this
like
point,
they made Pearl Harbor. It hasn't happened yet, and they're trying to Alicent and Rhaenyra kind of have it in them to potentially stop
for
Pearl
sure,
Harbor.
for
Yeah.
sure. But I don't know that there's anything that they can do to stop it.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
the Game of Thrones thing about it.
It's an iceberg that's moving a foot a day. It's
Pretty much.
going to run into
And it's
going to
get faster and faster and
Yeah.
faster. Rhaenyra speaks to her younger niece,
Yes.
Rhaena,
Rhaena.
and basically tasks her with taking the youngest children.
I
And-
thought in that scene she was gonna be like, "Hey, you want sea smoke?" I really thought that scene was like, especially when she mentioned because I don't have a dragon. I thought she was gonna be
thought
like,
too.
"Bitch, you about to have a dragon." I
That's
really
what I
thought
thought
that
so
for a
too.
second they were gonna do that in like scene to scene.
Well, I had to watch that scene 3 or 4 times because they use a lot of names.
Yes.
And I just had to like pick my brain through. Okay, what is she? Who is she talking about here?
yeah.
She's like, no, she just
Her
wants to
youngest
get
sons-
the youngest son specifically.
Her and
out.
Damon's sons. Joffrey will go and ward at the Vale where a dragon will be kept
Mhm,
to defend the Vale already.
mhm. And she wants him to take everybody else to Pentos or further to be further away.
Pentos for sure, if not further,
Yes.
if you're capable, because
Mhm.
that's where she's from and she knows they'll be able to stay safe there.
And she takes a couple dragons, little dragons, with her too, I believe.
Yes, and the 2 dragons that are already alive for her children,
And then
that are
a
babies.
cache of eggs.
the 4 eggs, which 3 of them are Daenerys's eggs. The dragons from
Oh, okay.
Yes. There are 4. Everyone on Twitter, everyone's like, the 3 eggs she takes. I'm like, 3 of the eggs she takes is what you should be saying, because there are 4 eggs there.
Mhm.
So that's probably going to end up being Rhaena's dragon or someone else's dragon down the line, however far in the future this show goes, however much of a time jump we get.
Mhm.
Excuse me. But 3 of those eggs, and it explains how Illyrio has them by the end of Game of Thrones. These eggs never come back to Westeros until they're fully grown dragons.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a really cool little Easter egg.
It's
And
the-
it also
the
is
little things.
still confusing because it's like, what's that 4th egg? Who's that? What dragon is that going to be? Is that going to be a dragon that grows up to be like one of those final ones that made it to the end? You know,
Yeah.
like just a little bit before.
They started getting small and dying off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope we don't have to see that.
The
That'd be
last
sad.
skull of that line was the size of an apple. That's what Tywin says when he's talking to Joffrey
Oh, yeah,
about
yeah,
the dragons all the way back.
They
That's
were
one of my
no bigger
favorite.
than a cat or a dog.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest like line deliveries he has. He
Mhm.
says, "Have you ever seen the throne room before your time? At the end, one of those the biggest skull was as big as a carriage. The last one was almost as big as an apple." He's like, "The Targaryens are gone. We do not need to fear them." Tywin's
So
sick.
different.
It's so different, and he was so good, dude. Those scenes with Joffrey. Sorry, real fast. I had a thing with this with a friend of mine the other day talking about season 2 to me of Game of Thrones is probably the most underrated season because of every single conversation Joffrey and Tywin have. Because season 2 is the season they see the most of each other, because that's when he's still in the capital.
And he's still playing hand.
Or not, I'm sorry, Tywin and Joffrey is more season 3, but Tywin and the rest of his family talking to Tyrion on the field, everywhere else. Tyrion talking with his family and all of the high council meetings. Those discussions that they have, they play out everything that happens years and years before so well, and they do it scene to scene. Joffrey, when you go back and listen to him, was the smartest dude in the room. It's crazy how often he was the smartest guy in the room. He saw every problem.
Care.
Well, yeah, because he didn't care. He didn't care what anyone was saying. He's the king, but he
had no allegiances to anybody but
he
himself.
Wasn't an idiot.
No, he wasn't.
Like everyone says,
he was ruthless.
He was ruthless, but he saw
and a bit of a coward.
Yes, but he saw every problem coming. He was like, "Shouldn't we just kill Daenerys now, when her dragons are babies? If she has them and they're real, and we have claim to believe that or not, these dragons will not be the size of dogs for the next 3 years.
Kill them.
Let's go kill them now." And they're like, "She's across the Narrow Sea. She won't be here for years. We need to deal with our problems here." When in reality, she fucking comes and murks everything.
It's just they shell him in such a ruthless character.
They put him down for being the 14-year-old king that he is, but he really was so intelligent on so many, like what we should be doing right now. Would it not be easy to send 20 guys to potentially handle this?
It was just everything else about him was his downfall.
Exactly. And God, it was that scene, that season with those conversations, once you have the scope of the whole show, God, it really is just some of the best, like Memento level storytelling in terms of like,
I love it.
Now you know,
Memento's
and knowing it before is so crazy.
Yeah. All right. Cut to
yes,
Daemon and his dragon flying in the rain at night.
At Harrenhal.
Approaching Harrenhal. It's a cool scene because you hear some soldiers as it flies overhead.
Yeah.
And then he lands and you don't find anybody. Everybody's gone.
Some of the best cinematography in the show. Yep. I don't know if you've watched it, but it was very similar to The Witcher, where a lot of the scenes where Henry Cavill is like in his
hate.
You hate The Witcher?
The Witcher.
Really?
The first scene in that show is the most badass first scene and probably first episode.
Did you finish
TV
the
show? I watched first season. I did. Okay. And so when he's like cutting up all those dudes, and then never once again in that season does he do that again.
Well, it's because they're setting a lot of that season is them setting stuff up, and then seasons 2 and 3 are
he has plenty
remarkable.
There's plenty of fight scenes.
Oh,
and I watched some of season 2. I did. It was such a amazing first episode, and then it just
okay. Well, we'll have that. We can table that discussion because I love that show.
Just had to say that.
I understand how some people wouldn't, but
it's not like a technically bad show. I just felt like
a lot of the cinematography in the Harrenhal scene specifically was very reminiscent of Geralt walking through the castles, fighting specifically the monsters when he's one-on-one, which doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, is really cool because he's just. He's drinks his potion, the eyes are black, and he's in supreme, like, what the fuck's about to happen mode, like, knowing that he's being hunted. Like, he could be being hunted as much as he's hunting himself.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what this felt like. Daemon was like,
and you don't know
what's
going to happen either. They don't let you know one way or the other.
Not a lot of foreshadowing. It's kind of unclear whether or not this place is truly dilapidated or if everyone's hiding because there's a fucking dragon.
It's the Hitchcock. It's the Hitchcock way they do thrills and tension. It's they tell you beforehand that people are there, so you know people are there. You just don't know to the extent that they're there. So you're nervous for him as he walks through the castle. Eventually he makes it to the Great Hall, and there's a soldier, and he kind of like, I don't think he kills him, but he like bops him on the head or something. Like
he just punches him in the front of his helmet like 2 or 3 times and knocks him out,
and then bursts through the Great Hall, and there's like 4 people in there.
Yeah, he's like, "I'm here to claim Harrenhal," and the guy's like,
"So you are."
Rhaenyra, that's my girl, man.
Yeah.
like immediately.
His name is Sir Simon Strong, the Castellan of Harrenhal.
Yes.
Who immediately pledges fealty to
Rhaenyra. And says "my prince" to Daemon twice, and Daemon gives him the like, "The fuck you say?"
He corrects himself. But they cut to this really cool dinner scene where he doesn't want to eat because he thinks it's poison.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "No, like we're really on your side.
Yeah, we like genuinely don't fuck with everyone else. we're cool. Like, be our leader."
And they have kind of a similar conversation about the Tullys in the Riverland and how Lord Tully can't keep his shit together. They discuss the advantages and the disadvantages of the Castle Harrenhal itself,
Yes.
and how he wants to use it as this big base of operations to capture the
And that it
Riverlands,
needs a ton of repair.
but that it's splintered around here. You're
Yeah.
getting both sides. So what can you do? What can you do? So he basically says, I summon you to summon your lord here, and I need to speak to Master Tully. He's apparently old and incontinent too,
Yes.
which I love.
It is pretty funny.
I thought we were going to cut to a scene of them like him like shitting his pants or
yeah,
something.
the way that they explain them.
Kind
in
of like
scene.
the ones at late in Game of Thrones with Sam at the whatchamacallit when he's like emptying out the bowls and stuff.
Yeah, at Old Town, at the Citadel. Jesus.
I
so
was
funny.
eating when I was watching it too. I'm so glad that it didn't happen.
Stuff like that just does not bother me.
No,
I could
depends on
watch
how
I
realistic
could
it
watch
is.
shit come out of an ass and still be eating my cereal and it would not bother. Like like if I smelled it, I'm f***ed. But like seeing a thing on a screen and not like the actual olfactory kicking in does not bother me.
I need a new co-host. Cut to Kristen Cole, and Alicent introduces her brother, Sir Gawain Hightower,
Yes,
a
Gwen.
little ginger butthole.
Very much the now makes it seem Alicent and Gwen are very much the Marjorie and Loris of this show.
I see him as
like
he's got a
right
little
away.
bit of Theon in him too.
Yeah,
He's a little bit of a
Theon.
pompous butthole.
Yeah,
Very full of himself. And I wonder immediately, and that's going to be one of the questions for this week that I ask is, what is his purpose? Obviously, she's brought him and introduced him to this small party of soldiers for a very specific purpose. And what do you think that is?
I think it's Cole needs a reminder of Alicent. I think that that's her way
Well, that's
of
good. I like that.
I think that's her way of going, don't forget about me.
Because you know that he's
And don't
eyes and
f***
ears.
around in front of this
you
guy.
know he's eyes and ears to begin with. You
Yes.
know that. But you also don't know is there's some sort of political agenda there that they have. Is he there to
Yes.
usurp his command or whatever?
Or at the
And-
very least, be able to be left behind if Cole has to leave, and he can remain in charge somewhere under the voice of Alicent
Mhm.
or Cole himself.
She's smart. She's very smart.
And I think after what we see at the end of this episode, that the two of them will probably become a little closer than it.
But you
it
also
lets
see
off
that
at
the power
beginning.
dynamic is not as mixed as it once was, and that Cole's still in charge.
Yes, very much so.
But he seems kind of like a butthole, pretty much.
Yeah.
We end on a shot of someone getting their eye eaten out by a bug.
That's cheese.
Yep.
It's reminding you that
Oh,
it's
is
cheese.
it cheese?
Yeah, it's still
Okay.
cheese.
Okay, I
It's
just think-
reminding you that it's him.
And we get to see kind of the size of the force that he's leaving with.
Well, it also comes right after it's after that scene with sin begets sin begets sin. It's a little reminder, like, where did this even start?
Yep.
Look at this guy decaying, who's
Which we've talked about.
He's the reason everything happened this season.
Mm-hmm.
That guy, and he's already dead and gone.
Mm-hmm. And
Sin
you could even
begets
say it's
sin
before
begets
that.
sin
You could
begets
even
sin.
go.
Yeah.
It's before Jaehaerys named an heir. It could be before all that.
Yeah.
But you get to see the size of his host that he's going with.
Yeah.
And I expected, and Game of Thrones fashion is going to be like 10 people.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a little bit bigger. It's probably like, I would say that they probably sent like 40 people with
At
him.
least. It's like somewhere between 40 and like 75 or 80. Like
Yeah, and
it's kind of unclear because it's so far away and you'd have to like pause and
Well,
individually
they're not
count
all out
horses.
either when they cut the
Yeah.
shot away.
Yeah.
And you kind of come to find out shortly that there's at least a few of those men seem to be somewhat loyal to Sir Gawain. He's probably got like 2 or 3 homies with him
Yeah.
that are riding with him. We cut to Rhaenyra and her small council, and they're discussing basically what her options are because she doesn't have much at this point. She's really without any dragons other than her own, I believe.
Hers and Rhaenys's and Sea Smoke, but he doesn't have a rider.
Yes, because he's flying around.
There are
doing stuff.
technically 14 dragons on her side, but like half of them are babies. Like they're
Oh,
like
yeah.
small or at least just big enough for a rider, like Bela's that we see later in the episode.
And these are people she doesn't necessarily want to put in any more than like recon positions.
Exactly.
Because she don't want them to die.
yeah, you need dragons when a war of dragons is about to happen.
Basically, someone actually says that she should go hide away, and she kind of gets mad. She's like, "So you want to do this war without me?" Which you think, yeah, they do.
Yeah,
They seem to want to undermine her at pretty much.
they
every
totally want to
turn.
go and like fight this shit now. Like
Mhm.
have this battle. Have
even though
these
they have
battles take place.
nothing.
Yeah.
They talk about having nothing. She basically doesn't make a decision at this point. We cut to Rhaenys speaking to Corlys, as his ship's still being repaired. And they discuss, I guess what I gleaned from it is they discuss the potential for who the heir to Driftmark will be.
Yes, that's
and that it's either going
Corlys
to
and
be.
Rhaenys discuss their house's future is the only note I put for that scene.
But they
aside from where
mention
that it's in Driftmark.
the only people that they really mention are people that I mentioned earlier in this episode, which is Rhaenyra or Joffrey.
No,
They-
Joffrey, yeah, because Jacaerys is now the other.
Well,
the
those
new-
are the two that they name in
Yes.
name during that scene.
And Joffrey, as far as Corlys is concerned, or as far as Rhaenys is concerned, rather, is not even like blood, like not
Yes,
their
yes.
blood.
Mhm.
Even though Corlys doesn't care. Corlys treats Rhaenyra's children as his grandchildren, whether they're blood or not, because to him, in
That's
the
what
end,
matters.
it's all about the name.
Uh-huh.
It's all about
He knows who writes the history books. and he's
Exactly.
a smart man. I really like his
Yeah,
character. a lot.
he's definitely a fan favorite. I
He
would,
seems like a nice dude too.
Yeah.
In the shots and stuff that they've shown him.
especially after everything that's happened to him and the people that he's lost.
What do you mean?
His son, his daughter, and his brother have
I'm
all
talking about like in
have
real
all
life.
died because of Rhaenyra and her family.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up, man. You need to get some new friends, homie.
Yeah, and he's still loyal, and especially because I think he has Rhaenys' counsel and sees that it's not really their fault. His daughter died in childbirth.
Mhm,
His son died because of an altercation, but really his son's out there somewhere.
mhm.
And his brother died being a piece of shit in front of the king, like
With-
kind of
with
wrote
the
his own.
Valyrian sword in his hand.
Yeah, like you can't do that.
Um,
But he is sick. That conversation is one of those conversations that is the reason I think Rhaenys may go down this path. They keep peppering in these moments of here's why Rhaenys might not be loyal.
But
in
she's
the
so
future,
logical to me.
She is too logical. She's probably the smartest character in the show,
But then she's still
aside
worried
from
about.
maybe Otto Hightower, and it's close.
Yeah.
It's those two to me are the 1 and 2 in either direction at any
Mhm.
moment.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
It's
oh,
hard
yeah.
to determine.
I would
who's the
give
smartest.
Otto. I think is about to turn into a bit of an evil person here.
Yeah,
Now that he's lost it a bit.
yeah.
But she's worried about Corlys in the coming war, which is what we kind of keep having these scenes surrounding Alan or Adam or them.
Their chemistry is phenomenal. Her and Corlys as a husband-wife dynamic is probably top 3. Their dynamic, the two of them, Corlys and Rhaenys, are probably top 3 in Game of Thrones couples.
Mhm.
The chemistry between them is flawless.
Yes, the
They
first.
are so good together, and and it's crazy that it took this show for 2 of the top 3, in my opinion. Rhaenyra and Daemon, when they're on screen together, are as good a couple in terms of the chemistry and like the problems that arise and how they deal with them.
Mhm.
No one's better. Them, and the fucking brother, the twins.
Yeah.
It's crazy that those are the top relationships, at least to me, on the show.
When I saw
Ned
them,
and Catelyn were great.
when I saw them
Didn't see
first
it a lot.
standing next to each other during in the first coronation where she skipped over,
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I don't know. I just didn't see it didn't look like a cohesive couple to me for whatever
Yeah.
reason. But now that he's sort of grown into his character and she has too, they
Yeah.
are like peas and carrots, man.
Yeah.
They really do work well together. And they're going to be a force throughout this show, I
Yes.
believe.
I can't
certainly.
remember. Is he a dragon rider?
No.
No, his son is, or his son was. His,
son
his
was.
children were.
No,
but he
he's
was
the
not.
master of
Ships.
He's
Yeah.
like that dude. He's the
Yeah.
sailor.
Well,
He's
I knew that also. He's the sea snake, but I didn't know that
yeah.
he also. I couldn't tell if he also had a dragon or not.
They should have gave him like a wyvern or some like sea serpent that
yeah,
he
that'd
could
be
like.
cool.
That'd be so dope.
That'd be dope.
Yeah, one that could come up out of the water or something.
Yeah,
That'd be so sick. Write it.
that was Paul shouting
Yeah, I'm
to
sorry.
Miguel Sapochnik.
Oh,
Please, Miguel. You know you want to direct that. You know that's the action you want.
You need $1 billion to do it. We
Right.
cut to Rhaenyra leaving now with Stormcloud, Taraxis, and I wrote 3 eggs.
Sorry. Oh, nope. I meant to cut my volume off of my phone. Let me go ahead and mute that while we finish this. And you wrote 3 eggs?
Yes.
See, everybody got tricked. I don't know how this worked, but like, go look at the scene. Everyone watching, if you're confused about this, there's a 4th egg. It's like blue-white. It's like a white-blue egg.
That I was like,
Yeah.
I saw 3 eggs and I just wrote 3 eggs.
I knew going forward. I knew before the episode that they were going to kind of be in like because it's for a blink and you'll miss it moment in the trailer for the episode. You see
Mhm.
the eggs, and I was like, I wonder if that's those eggs. And then when the episode happens, they really linger on it for like a half
I
second
know
beat
that.
too long, and I was like, those are Daenerys. I was like, that's definitely. And then the showrunners, after the episode came out, said, yes, those are Daenerys'
That's
eggs.
awesome. I love
Yeah.
it.
That's
I
such a
bet they
cool little
colored
thing.
them very, very like vividly
Specifically.
in those specific
They're
colors.
much clear. They're clearly alive still in this. Where at the beginning of Game of Thrones, they're not meant to be. But then
Well, that could be another question for this
blood
week.
magic. Yeah,
Is what happened to that
fourth
egg?
and whose possession do these eggs end up in?
Somebody out there
Yeah.
related to Ilario.
Yep.
Probably. Rhaenyra says goodbye, as does Bela, who shows up and gives
Yeah.
some words of encouragement to her younger sister. We cut to Helena and Allison, where we finally get like a little bit of a conversation where she says that she forgives her
Yeah.
for you know what, that you know when.
Yeah.
Which
Helena, that was one of the best scenes with Helena yet, of her being the like, she's the emotional outcast. She's this weirdo. Like,
because what she says too, she says that I don't feel bad, and I think that that's okay.
Yeah, I feel like after what happened, after going through the funeral procession, all of those people have probably lost children. Like, why shouldn't I be?
And I'm in such a better off position than they
yeah,
are.
like I'm still
rich,
okay. I'm rich. I'm in the castle. Like, high ladies can lose babies just like
and I can have another kid.
and I can have
says.
another like
Yeah.
like she really did become the like 10 years down the line emotional development.
It took her a little bit, but now she's
Yeah.
like snapped out of it and good to go.
Yeah,
And she seems like a pretty strong, like she could potentially fill a Sansa-ish role where she could turn out to be pretty strong.
yeah. And
Or she could lose
Alicent's
her mind.
moment in that scene of almost crying is just Olivia Cook really nailing home why she got cast in the show. In season 1, she was the most apprehensive I was about a character being cast. I was like, I don't like it. I don't like her performance so far. I don't see how she's going to like fall into this character. She has absolutely full sent this character this season. I love her. She's becoming one of my favorite performances. When she's on screen, she steals every scene she's in, unless
I like her
Kristen
a lot,
Cole is there
too.
too, because he is really coming into his own. They're really the cast has the number one thing for me this show this
for
season
sure.
so far. Everyone is blowing away.
They
They're
always
just killing
nail
it.
it.
Yeah, they do such a good job.
Tells her she forgives her. Cut
Yes.
to Aegon and his tailor and his 3 friends are now there with the King's Guard. He's being fitted for King Aegon the Conqueror's armor, which is what you
Yes.
find out, which is the same sword as one of 3 Valyrian swords that he wields when he gets coronated. Aegon's getting fitted. Sir Loras approaches and basically,
Laris,
what did I say?
Loris, like Loris Tyrell.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Laras.
It's so hard to mess these. You can mess these names up so easy, and when there's another name that is that name,
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, like,
But he basically makes up some motivations about his mother and his brother to get him to not go to
yes,
to fight
plays
a
the
war,
game so well,
which I thought was interesting for him.
yeah,
And he asks Laris, did I say
to
it?
be
to be his master of whispers,
which is
weird because now he works for both his mother and him.
yes,
Wonder who he's going to be more loyal to
probably the one with the hot feet.
when he. Oh, her hot feet will put her son on the hot seat.
Yep, that was good. I like that. That was,
Okay.
that's the sound he makes when he sees feet.
He reminds his friends that they're all have vows of celibacy,
Yes,
and then they immediately cut to a tavern at night. And
probably the most interesting scene in the whole show in terms of what information gets relayed.
yeah, but you know that it's probably not a true thing.
Maybe not, but
Because
why
you
would
s-
they
you know
do
you
this?
see that guy in another shot. The rat catcher scenes when they show them being hung. He's one of the people outside, and he has like a line that he says as he walks by.
Oh, does he?
They've interviewed him a few
Okay.
times in the house the dragons built as like an extra and stuff, talking about his
Okay.
time there. But he tells
A Dornish
guy who that he's the
He's
I
the
wrote it down,
bastard brother of Viserys and Daemon.
bastard brother of Daemon and
Balon's
Viserys,
bastard son.
Rhaenyra's uncle.
Yeah.
And but then they are interrupted by King Aegon and his
Yes.
homies coming
After
through.
he says very like out loud to the rest of the bar,
yeah,
Rhaenyra is queen.
yeah.
Which
Well,
is
no,
great.
he says he doesn't say that loudly, but as soon as
loud enough that
Well,
it
to the
seems
table.
like everyone's silent because he says that, but in reality, everyone's silent because
Yes.
the king just walked
But
in.
I think it's implied that just the people at his table hear him.
Yes.
But immediately when the king
It sounds
walks
like for a
in,
moment maybe the whole
Yes.
bar picked up
Like,
on it,
wait,
but
what?
but then it's a camera trick,
and then he immediately
it plays
goes,
out so well.
"Hail King Aegon!" or
Yeah.
whatever.
Hail King Aegon of the first of his name, blah blah blah.
He visibly shit himself.
Yeah, it
though.
was so good.
He's like, everybody drinks free, whatever, that type deal. And then they cut to a brothel
Yeah.
with a squire that they reference.
It's a scene that, in hindsight, it should be kind of obvious what's about to happen, but I was totally taken aback as it got to
Caught me off
when
guard.
it gets to Aemon. I was like,
Yes.
"Oh wow, we're doing this! This is a scene right here. This is a crazy scene."
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was so good.
So they come into the bar, or
The squire that his friend had mentioned.
It's a, what do they call it? A house of pleasure,
A brothel.
brothel. What do they call,
In the show,
and they call it a house of pleasure.
Yes,
Pleasure
in
house.
Game of Thrones. Yeah, there's like a few names. Tyrion always says a brothel.
Yeah,
Littlefinger always said he had a different name that I can't think of right now, but there was a name he always says. It's something like a pleasure house.
well, he comes in and he's immediately just being an asshole to everybody. He's just
Yeah.
opening up every curtain in every room
Yeah.
and just drunkenly laughing at people.
Yeah.
There's some pretty
And probably the most graphic sex scene we've seen of a woman giving fellatio to quite an obvious prosthetic. Like that might be the most obvious a prosthetic has been in the show.
and it's not like quick either. I mean, it's
No,
there
they
for a
linger
second.
there for like 4 whole seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
Which doesn't sound like a lot when you say it, but count like 1, 2,
when you're getting
3,
catching an eye full of
4.
nut,
Yeah.
it can be a lifetime.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So then they go through this whole place, and then eventually he pulls a curtain over to find his brother Aemon nude in
Cuddling-
fetal position,
yes.
cuddling a prostitute who's an older, not
Yes.
like a
Probably more a motherly,
yes.
like
He's got mother
that's,
issues.
That's what he's into.
He's got mommy
yeah.
issues for sure. And that's the woman who's Kristen Cole's acting coach. And he laughs at him and says, I was going to bring you in here for this woman, Squire, except for it looks like my brother's busy. And he's just laughing straight in his face,
Yeah.
basically. And
Being
you
real
see,
shitty about
you
it.
see him, you can tell he's been picked on so much that he turns the switch.
Yeah.
He stands up fully nude.
Fully nude.
And
Like,
he
and
did it-
definitely, I think, probably not a prosthetic.
No, I think that was his stuff.
That's for sure that actor being like, I don't give a f, let's do it. And it's funny because in the same year as Saltburn,
and
where
he's in
he's
Saltburn.
in Saltburn. That's what I was gonna say.
Saltburn was my
Saltburn.
favorite movie of last
I haven't
year.
seen it yet.
Oh my God.
All I know is
there are
that
3 scenes in that movie that made me stand up and walk out of the room.
because they're so like
They're just, I can't even tell you.
cringy or like
It's-
just
They're
uncomfortable.
different. All
Okay,
of them are
different.
different, but they
I know
will-
all I know about that movie is that James Elordi from Euphoria is in it, and that our boy, what's the main guy? I can never remember his
Barry
name.
Keegan.
Yes, Barry.
He's one of my
Keoghan.
favorite actors.
I love him too. I'm
He's great.
very excited for his Joker in the Batman Part 2.
Mhm.
But all I know is that in that movie he's fully nude, and you totally see everything
It
for a while
dances,
at the end.
yeah.
I haven't seen it, but
Matter
I've
of
heard
that's
that.
why.
And I thought that was a really funny connection that
Oh,
in this
man.
episode, the guy
That's
in
the
this thing
most-
from that movie is
Yeah,
fully nude.
that's the most mild thing that happens in that movie.
wow.
Such a great movie. I'm telling you that
Okay.
that movie. Right, we did a
Everyone,
recap.
all my friends have told me to watch
We did
it.
a recap of like our Oscar predictions and what I predicted to happen, what I think should have happened.
Yeah.
It swept it for me. Best actor, best actress. Rosamund Pike flipping blows it. Carrie Mulligan's amazing in it.
Carrie Mulligan's amazing in everything she does.
Even in Maestro, which that was a shit sandwich of a movie. I hated that. movie.
What?
That was a terrible.
Oh,
movie.
okay. Tabling that.
Terrible movie.
Aemon. How
he just
dare you.
stands up. And he's
Aemon
Amen.
naked stands up. Aemon stands up naked. We're
Aemon-
not. I cannot have that conversation about
Aemon.
Maestro. I love Maestro. We're not doing that. We'll do it later.
Amen stands up and basically just like, well,
Yeah, have her.
choose yours if you want. And they've had conversations about like he really cares about her.
Yeah, for
in
real.
a
Like
deep
loves
way.
her very
And
much.
so, but he just
has
stands
to
up
play.
like a
He's in
G.
front of all of Aegon's friends. He has to be this
He's
guy
gotta
right
play the
now.
part.
Yeah.
And so he stands up and walked out of the room like I was like, okay, I guess that's
Full buff in front of the rest of
That's
the
how
room
that's
too. Like
happening.
didn't give a just. That was a gangster scene for him down the line. Like
Cut to Rhaenyra in her children's empty playroom. And
finding her
as she-
finding their toys.
Yes, picking them up. She is holding the scroll with Allison's sigil on it. that I'm presuming was given to her by
You got this.
Rhaenys.
There you go.
I did it, Dad.
I'm
And
proud
she
of you.
eventually does open it and read it. We then cut to Sir Criston Cole chasing down about 4 riders. Well, not chasing down, but coming up to Sir Gawain and about 4 riders as they walk their horses through the woods. And he's like, "What the flip are you going?"
Really through a field.
It's kind of a field.
Yeah, a very open
It's-
pasture, if you will.
It was a forest that's coming onto open field area within this sort of setting. And Christian Cole walks up to, he's like, "Where the flip are you going?" And camps back that way.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, well, there's also a tavern that's 2 miles that way. That's where we're going." And they have a little word back and forth before anything really gets resolved. And he says, "We're out in the open. We can be seen." And just in that moment, we hear a dragon.
Yes. And he says, we're exposed.
We're exposed.
And I was like, how are we about to see how good like the dragon riders can see? How are they going to explain this? And then you see the glint of armor.
And that's perfect.
But really, if you I zoom back, I played that scene again. The dragon is kind of going like, yo, girl, look this way. Because like he or she totally sees
Mhm.
what's going on.
You'd think that
Because the
there's maybe
dragon's
some sort of
vision is probably
connection.
the dragon's vision is far superior
Well, they
to
mentioned
humans.
that too on the ground too. It depends on how good the vision is.
Yeah.
In like a sort of a passing thing.
Yeah.
But I love that shot with the armor.
I really thought the way that they shot that chase, that the 2 guys in the back were getting f***ing kebabbed.
Sure.
I thought they were done for.
one guy
At
was
least
getting
somebody
murdered.
was going to get cooked.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
no.
And so she sees them from above. We cut to the shot where you see the glint from the armor, and they dive bomb basically. And Bela's dragon, Moon Dancer,
Moon Dancer?
Moon
I think it
Storm or
is
something-
Moon Dancer.
something or
I think
another.
Moon Dancer's right.
Yeah, still a smaller dragon in the
Yeah.
same vein that Lucerys.
Probably like a season 5 Daenerys dragon.
Well, it was similar to Lucerys' dragon in size, but a little bit bigger because
Yeah.
she's a little older than he is.
Yeah.
So you can imagine if Lucerys were her age, his dragon would have been that same size, maybe. A little bit bigger, but still a smaller,
Yeah.
quicker, more agile dragon. Chases them down into the field, and they make the tree line just as she pulls up in the last minute.
Yeah.
She circles for a moment, can't see anything, and basically kind of leaves off from that moment. But now there's a moment where Christian Cole basically says, "Well, now they know we're going to be
Yeah.
here, so we got to
Yeah.
go by
Good
cover.
job, Gwaine.
Good job, asshole. Now we got to go by
Gwaine
night."
is my favorite new name to say. I can't wait to make fun of him in the future. Gwaine is such a fun name to say, like,
Until
you suck,
season
Gwaine.
6 rolls around, you're like, he's the most badass character.
Right? Like, Gwaine probably, he's either going to be one or the other, like, super amazing or the worst, shittiest character.
He'll have an eye patch and long hair.
It is hard going into this show knowing who to hate. Because, like, everyone you hate in the first 3 seasons of Game of Thrones become fan favorite characters.
Mhm.
Jaime, Theon, like, so many characters become so cool.
And that's why you love them, because they make changes. There's
Yes.
stakes in this show.
Jaime Tart.
Without stakes,
Yeah, you need a shitty character to become, like, to love them when they're good, to
Mhm.
realize where they came from.
to
It's-
appreciate them.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Boom, we're in Harrenhal.
boom. We're cut to Bella relaying news to Rhaenyra
Oh,
and
okay,
Rhaenys
yeah,
at the
that's
small
first.
council. They implore her to act, but she still does not make a decision. Cut to Daemon at Harrenhal, where he is sleepless, and he has a vision.
So it seems.
So it seems he has a vision of young Rhaenyra sewing Jaehaerys' head back on,
Yeah.
which is a kind of a creepy little scene.
Yeah, but a really cool one. A very like telling scene of where Damon's head really is. You see how he is on the outside and what he says, the things he the like what's it called? The I can't think of the word. Posturing. He postures as this big bad, I'm here to shit up. I'm here to claim this in my name, but really Rhaenyra's name, but kind of my name.
Mhm.
But then you see where his head really is at. Like, he truly does know he's being the fuckhead that he is, and he's making bad decisions, and he's fucking up Rhaenyra's potential and, like, her potential
it's-
claim.
Yeah. It's the first time in his life where he's had to worry about someone other than himself,
Yes.
and it's like
And he does worry.
it's like Professor X turning his powers back on for the first time. He's got to
Yes.
get used to
In Days of
feeling
Future.
emotions.
Yes.
and
That's a
things like
really,
that.
I really like that comparison a lot. That's
And
a
so
really
now
good
he's
comparison.
kind of doing that,
Yeah.
and that's why he's such an interesting character, because that's definitely going to be his downfall.
Yes.
The more he cares about someone other than himself, the more he opens himself to death, basically, which is why he's a tragically flawed, very Shakespearean character, which is why he's so attractive in terms of like storytelling. A mysterious dark-haired he snaps out of it and he's outside, and a mysterious dark-haired woman that they linger the camera on earlier in the episode, but they don't say anything else about her.
Very much I think what we're supposed to get from this episode is very much like a Melisandre style weird witch character.
But we don't know if she's going to be a bigger character.
Yeah, she wasn't wearing red, so it's hard
No.
to tell if she was a fire priestess.
But she was all black.
Yeah.
Black hair, light-skinned.
Yes.
And she says that basically, in more words than one, that she's going to die here.
Yeah, that Daemon's going to die here.
Daemon's going to die.
Gives a very much Melisandre and Varys conversation, which in Game of Thrones, when these things are said, it is almost for certain they're going to happen.
Even if it's sort of like a Pandora's box way where it's like,
is it
you will
tomorrow
be
or is it in
rich.
10 years? Yeah.
Is it, are you going to be rich before you die though?
Yeah. Are you
never
gonna
know.
leave Harrenhal and then come back when you're 90 and die, or
Or
are you
you're
gonna
gonna
die
trip
in
and
a
fall.
week? Like, yeah, what's gonna happen?
You've been poisoned already and you're just going to die a painful death in your bed.
Yeah.
We cut back to Rhaenyra, who approaches Missaria and asks her to about what she knows about Alicent's movements, because she's desperate to avoid bloodshed. And she tells her that there's a way that Daemon used to sneak in and out of the castle, and this is how she can do it. We cut to then again quickly, and this is where it differs from Game of Thrones. The pacing is that it would have probably been 2 or 3 episodes later if this was early on to see this scene, but we got right to it, where Rhaenyra and a man dressed as a priest, she's dressed as a septa,
Yes.
and they're sneaking into
Apparently,
King's Landing.
according to the internet, a lot of people thought it was the same septa from the Shame who plays. You seen Ted Lasso?
She's so hot.
She's so hot. That's Hannah
I
Waddingham.
love her.
She's so great. I didn't know till season 2 of Ted Lasso that was her, and I was like, "Are you shitting me? I love her so much.
She's the best.
She's great in that show.
but
She's
no, but
cool
that's
in real
what
life."
it reminded me of.
Yeah, and that's what it's meant to. But that scene,
Well, let's get there. God,
yeah,
give me
you're
a
right.
chance,
You're right.
bro.
I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
They
I'm
get
being
to
a
King's
piece of
Landing.
shit.
They get to King's Landing, and it's cool because you see King's Landing in an area we've not seen yet. And the sept, it's not the same sept that they blow up.
Yeah, it's not the Great Sept of Baelor, which
It's
I
not
thought it
been built
might be,
yet.
but it is not that one. Yeah, it's just a sept.
So it's just another sept, and she's there with 3 Kingsguard.
It's the same one she keeps going to. You see her there a lot.
Praying a lot there.
Yeah.
There's the different big figures of the 7 in there. We cut to Alicent praying, and in what looks to be in front of the Maiden of the Mother. But
Yes.
it's hard to tell, and I don't know if that's symbolism.
I think it is. A friend of mine was like, "Is that the maiden from
Mm-hmm.
like Game of Thrones and shit?" I was like, "I think it is."
Rhaenyra approaches. What up, dirty rascals? Diet Dr. Paul here. Had a little bit of an issue with editing. Some of my audio dumped out for about 2 or 3 minutes right here at this point in the video. So I'm just going to kind of summarize up what you missed so that, you know, all the information is there and available for you. Rhaenyra shows up to the sept where Alicent is at and sits down. She pulls a knife, which catches Alicent off guard, and I think she is assuming that she's about to be killed. That's when Rhaenyra says, I've started poorly, so they kind of reset the situation and get to talking. They finally both look each other dead in the eyes and kind of ask each other, specifically, Alicent is asked by Rhaenyra, you know, why did you lie? Why did you change? And that's when Alicent basically tells her that, no, your father made the change on his deathbed. I'm not lying. And she starts to believe her. At this point, she asks Alicent exactly what he said. And when she hears what he says, or what his words were about the prince that was promised, and reference to what we saw in Game of Thrones season 1, that's when Rhaenyra realizes that she misunderstood what Viserys had said, and that she wasn't aware that it was an old story that he used to tell. So at this point, she tells Alicent that no, it was a story, the jig's up. Now you know you need to give in. And at this point, Alicent basically says, not happening, not gonna happen. And that's where we're gonna pick back up here with me and Chris in the studio. Sorry again, I didn't want to leave anything out, but throw it back to the boys in the studio.
This is where Alicent really makes her villain arc begin truly, because now, with the knowledge that Rhaenyra definitely is telling, they're best friends. They each know that each other is telling the truth. stands her ground and says that Aegon is
this
king.
is why I don't see her as a villain, is because it's always been about her kids.
Yes.
And
Well,
this is why
I think
even, it doesn't matter
until this moment, I would have agreed with you. But
if
from
she
that point,
if she's were to, okay, you're right, we're done, it still would put her children in danger, so she would never do that.
sure, yeah.
That's my thing.
But she is
that's what
now
makes her
finally
flawed.
she is now finally acting against the truth in her
Well,
own eyes.
in essence, I think they both still
Excuse me.
like subconsciously don't believe one another. I think they're both still, whether you can look at the facts on a piece of paper and say, yes,
Yeah.
I believe this are true. I think it's like the guilt part of it subconsciously still makes you feel like you're right.
Yes.
And not allowing like the truth to fully set in and make you feel guilty.
Especially in a world where the truth will never truly be known by anyone
who's
outside
in power
of
makes the truth.
Exactly.
And so at this point,
History
it doesn't
is
matter.
written by its victors.
Even if
Corlys
Rhaenyra
understands
was wrong,
it. No one else seems to totally get it yet.
Absolutely. But even if Rhaenyra was in the wrong spot as well,
Yes.
she's still in such a position that she couldn't do anything about it anyway and stop what's going forward, which
Yeah.
is why it's sort of inevitable at this point. They're basically cannot come to a decision at this point because the stalemate and the scene ends.
And I think they both know going into the conversation, especially Rhaenyra,
Mhm.
is that there's almost nothing going forward that can be totally peaceful, but we can still make it as peaceful as possible. There's
Yes.
a way that this
and that's
can
what
still...
she's trying to do.
Yeah.
But at that point, everybody's got to sort of
Everyone's
Fess
holding the
up.
sword ready
Yes.
to go.
yeah. It's just it's the what do they call it? The nuclear clock is at midnight. You know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Everyone knocked earlier. They've all drawn and they're waiting to loose.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting ready to pull a Ramsay.
Alicent says it's too late for that, Rhaenyra, and then literally just gets up and
Gets
walks
him and
away.
leaves. But does say you should get out of here before anyone sees you, which is some pretty hardcore homie energy. That is some like very cool, like it's cool that
It's an honorable. It's like the white
most-
flag thing.
yeah.
You're there to parlay.
yeah.
But you leave,
And you've
'cause-
put yourself in the most vulnerable position
Mhm.
that you ever probably will again,
absolutely,
which was so sick. It was that one of the greatest scenes in this show so far, if not the greatest scene, and one of, to me, the great conversations in Game of Thrones.
Mhm.
In terms of what's happening, the context of the situation, and what gets achieved, and the knowledge that gets put forth is such an unbelievable scene.
It was a good way to end a Game of Thrones episode that didn't have a lot of like fighting and
Yes.
action in it. It
a
was
very
different-
political episode.
I don't want to say filler episode because that has a bad connotation.
Yeah.
But in the Game of Thrones world, this was a filler episode because it's connecting to bigger events,
Yes.
which is what we'll probably see in the next episode.
Excuse me.
I asked you about one of the questions for next week. Gonna be what's the purpose for sending Gwaine? My next question for this episode, because that's the end of the episode, is what will Rhaenyra's first move be after Alicent refused her olive branch?
Probably to send. My first thought would be send somebody else to Harrenhal
Mhm.
to like see what Damon's up to, since they have no word from Damon yet. And if not that, we might see the people who take Joffrey to the Vale to introduce those characters to us.
Mm-hmm.
If not potentially it being Rhaenyra herself doing it, or we see the collection of the armies. We're going to see her go to the front lines of this, figure out who's in charge, be the leader that she needs her armies to have, and like be at the front,
To
show
galvanize.
her face. Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
we'll see a lot of that. We'll see her being a leader rather than being the queen who's in her,
Off somewhere in
yeah,
the castle,
up in
hiding
the castle
away.
hiding. Yeah.
Yeah.
See her get on the ground and go steadfast against her counsel.
So that's going to be it for this episode. Again, sorry about the audio issues. They also affected the ending here. I'm not sure what happened. Some of the audio was replaced by audio from previously in the video, and so I had to remove that part, and then this little chunk at the end. Is only literally I missed us just saying goodbye at the end. So that's all I'm doing, wrapping it up. Chris and myself will be back same place, same time next week for episode 4 of House of the Dragon Deep Dive. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time at the movies.
Kill.